What's up, everybody? After this video, you tell me these guys aren't just absolutely dead serious about all of this. But let's start from the beginning in case somebody hadn't heard this yet. In the Bible, Numbers 19 for one, I think it's mentioned in other places, but God tells Moses that the children of Israel have to find and sacrifice a perfect red heifer. It can't have a single white hair, no blemishes, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It has to be a 100% all red haired heifer, which might not sound like a big deal, but there's only been 9 throughout history. And there hasn't been one in 2,000 years now, according to the official timeline. They are supposed to sacrifice the red heifer and burn it thoroughly down to ashes. And these ashes are to be mixed with living waters, which is water from a spring, waters that flow, and then sprinkled on the priest to reach ritual purity. This has to be done before the tribe of Judah, I'm just going to call them the tribe here, can be ritually clean to be able to pray on top of the Temple Mount. This is why today you see the tribe praying at the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, because by their own rules, they're not allowed to go up and pray on top of the Temple Mount, or the bigger goal here is to build the third temple. At present, the Dome of the Rock, which is the most holy site in Islam, sits on top of the Temple Mount. So even though the tribe took control of this area in 1948, it's their own rules that forbid them from doing any religious activity up here. It's not because they respect the holy site of the Prophet. But after this red heifer has been found and the ritual taken place, ashes sprinkled on the priest, then the only thing stopping them from doing whatever they want up here is just a building. I mean, look at all the buildings in the northern strip right now. I think they've got taken buildings down to an art. And just so you know, the building of the third temple is supposed to usher in the tribe's Messiah and the end of the world, which sounds a little cliche at this point, but it's what they truly believe. And what I keep telling people is it doesn't matter what you believe, it's what they believe. And it's something they've been waiting for allegedly 2,000 years, and they're ready to get it on. I mean, they got the Temple Institute. They got things in place, including 5 eligible candidates for the red heifer. I think I forgot to mention that it has to be either 2 years of age or older, or 3 years of age. A few years ago, a Christian American cattle rancher gave them 5 candidates for this. And as of September, they still had eligible candidates. They were still without blemish. And word on the street was that they would be of age around October 15th. Now, these are well documented. Quite a few YouTubers have gone there and actually seen them. And this was the general attitude, around the 1st of October, that they'll be of age this month. What could possibly stop it? Well, we all know what happened over there 7 days into the month. And just 1 week shy of when these red heifers would come of age. Now, they've been waiting for 2,000 years, and then 1 week before the date that we're told that they would be old enough, the biggest scuffle since the Nakba took place in that region. Now, what a coincidence. Once this ritual has taken place, then it sets off all of these supposed to be biblical events. We'll talk about whether this is the work of God or if this is people forcing prophecy. But once this takes place, then it starts the end times events with all of the wars and chaos. And it's kind of funny, all these Christian channels that I listen to for this information are of the opinion, since what happened, well, I guess they're just putting everything on hold and, waiting for the dust to settle. While every day that this is delayed is another day that they could grow a white hair or something and be disqualified. If you had waited 2,000 years, would you take that risk, or would you do it as soon as they came of age? And if this were to set off, the 7 years of tribulations, would you even give the rest of the world the correct date on it? Well, I wouldn't, and I don't think they did, and I think the ceremony has already taken place. So, welcome to the end of the world, everyone. Let me show you what I found out. Okay, first off, to burn an 800-pound cow down to completely ashes requires a huge fire for hours and hours. It'd probably take 10, 12 hours to accomplish this, and it has to be done in a specific area, which is in view of, I believe, the temple doors. And this is commonly accepted as meaning taking place on the Mount of Olives, which is now right in the center of a huge modern city. How well do you think a big bonfire burning a cow would go over, especially with your Muslim neighbors, right here in the middle of Jerusalem? Probably not very well, unless, I don't know, there was a huge distraction. But what if there was another location that you could do this at that qualified? One that looked more like this instead of the urban sprawl. Well, this would probably be a much more desirable location, huh? Well, this location is Shiloh, and I'm going to sidetrack just 1 second here. You see that Tel Shiloh? You hear this name all over there, Tel Aviv, Tel Megiddo. Well, Tel is an archaeological term for a hill that looks like a natural hill, but is actually a buried city. And I am going to have to do a mud flood video for this area because it's all been absolutely buried. You can see in the background on the top right that this is a big hill that they're on, and there's a buried city up at the top of it. And the story goes that in 79 AD, the Romans conquered and then absolutely destroyed Jerusalem. And we're talking to the point that they literally buried the street under 20 feet of dirt and rubble and mud. This is excavations on the ancient Pilgrim Road, and as you can see, the whole modern city is up above there. So you mean to tell me that the Roman soldiers, after a big battle, spent the next 2 years just burying this place? And we only have one historical source that tells this story, Josephus. That's it. We're taking the word of Josephus for what happened to an entire country. And he says, well, the Romans destroyed it beyond recognition and evidently buried it under 20 feet. Well, what about all of these other Tel cities that are so thoroughly buried they look like natural hills now? Anyway, back to Shiloh and why this place is important. They actually take a lot of liberties with the interpretations of God's word. And probably the biggest one was that the Messiah was supposed to lead the children of Israel into the land of Izzy. But along the way, they decided that was more, metaphorically speaking. And, the Lyonese back in 48 just said, well, okay, that's just kind of symbolic, and we're going to go ahead and go there. But another interpretation for the sacrifice, being in front of the temple doors, is that in Shiloh, they had the tabernacle set up. And inside was the Ark of the Covenant, which is the important thing here. That's why the Temple Mount was so important. It's because it was Solomon's temple where they kept the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy of Holies. So what they've done is interpreted that, well, Shiloh qualifies as well because you're still in front of the temple, the tabernacle, which was just a temporary temple. So I think this has already taken place here at Shiloh, because another important ritual that has to take place for all of this to happen recently took place at their festival of Sukkot, I think it's called. But they say what made this year's celebration truly memorable was the mesmerizing reenactment of the water libation ceremony. Even more fascinating is that this ritual hints at the construction of the long-awaited third temple. So they perform this ritual in front of everybody, and they're thinking, oh, it's just a reenactment, but no, it was the real thing. And now, get this. In order to perform this ritual, they have to have a ritually clean, pure priesthood. So they had to raise children specifically for this purpose. So they have raised children for this purpose in purity so that when they are old enough, they can be the ones to prepare the red heifer. And so this has to be done before the red heifer is even found. They have to be raised from birth in a constant state of purity, and this means that they've built and raised them in a compound protected from impurity, because it has to be built into bedrock so that they don't accidentally walk across a forgotten grave that's down below. They actually call it a grave of the abyss. So they have built a special compound and raised these children just for this purpose. And they have never been allowed to leave that compound because they might accidentally cross over an old forgotten grave. Now, they don't say any of this specifically in this recent article, but they say that the preparations for the third temple have already been completed, including the sacred worship vessels and the priestly garments to be worn by the Levites, the gatekeepers, and that over 500 young men descended from the tribe of Levi have been trained as temple priests. Can't talk. So if you put all this together, there's a compound somewhere with 500 children in captivity that have been raised for this specific purpose. And, well, everything's ready to go.
They've wanted, of course, to rebuild their temple, and thanks to the Temple Institute, which is just behind us, all the plans are already made. The sacrificial altar has been recently constructed. The priest robes have been made. Pretty much everything is ready to go.
So he mentioned the Temple Institute there. This is a big, huge organization with lobbyists in Washington whose sole purpose is to bring about the third temple. They've built the altar. They've made the special priestly robes. They performed the water libation ceremony. They raised 500 priests in a bedrock prison. And after 2,000 years, they finally had the red heifers of age last month. But, dang it, Hamas broke out the hang glider, so we got to call the whole thing off, guys. Sorry. Yeah, right. And everybody knows that that was a flag event that happened. If they didn't orchestrate it, they allowed it. And that event just happened to give them a justification to start all-out scuffle with the entire Islamic world, which just happens to have their most sacred mosque right in the location where these guys want to build their third temple. So the entire world knew that these red heifers were ready to go up until October, and now they have gone completely dark on the subject. Nobody has heard a peep out of it. So let me ask you, after everything that these people have done to make all of this happen, do you think that they just said, never mind, we'll just wait for this to blow over? Or do you think that they went out to another location that qualifies for this ritual and did it in private? Well, all I can say is welcome to the 7 years of tribulation. Static out.